Welcome, everyone, to Buddha's Center. My name is Jeff Allen, and tonight we're going to look at Lama Tsongkhapa's Foundation of All Good Qualities, or the Source of All of My Good, sometimes called Prayer for a Mountain of Blessings. It's so powerful. If you're on Zoom, it's moving me around. Anyway, all kidding aside, it's an incredible text that we've gone over many times with Khensur Geshe Wangdak, and we see the entire great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment in that text. And we could also say we see the entire stages of the tantric path summarized in that text as well. If we look at the two texts by Lama Tsongkhapa, the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Tantric Path and the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, this very, very short poem contains all of the meaning, all the essence of the teachings that Lama Tsongkhapa presented about the perfection vehicle and then the tantric vehicle and the classes of tantra of action, performance, yogic, and highest yoga tantra. So we won't go into that kind of depth and detail about this text, the source of all my good. Prayer for a mountain of blessings, but we will look at it in the way that we can, and hopefully you'll derive some benefit from it. So before we get into the body of the text, let's get into a position where we can very easily develop a clear mind, a position that we can get used to more and more and more, so that it will set up a foundation physically for our practice. And as we get more and more realized, and our mind can stay on a focal object for longer and longer periods of time, our body will be able to support that process of meditation. So we get into the 7-point Vairakana posture that we've gone over many times before. So from that posture, what's very, very important about the 7-point Vairakana posture, if we were to say what's the most important thing that you have to focus on, is you want to keep your back straight. It says to keep your vertebrae straight like a stack of coins. Anyone who's brand new, you can look into what the 7-point Vairakana posture is. I've given the teaching many times. So get into the 7-point Vairakana posture and begin to breathe through your nose in a very normal fashion. So we're in that 7-point Vairakana posture. We're breathing only through our nose. We're breathing in all the way to the top of the breath, filling our lungs and filling our diaphragm. And then we're exhaling when we get to the top of that breath. And as we exhale, count the number 1. Repeat the process. Inhale through your nose, bring it all the way to the top of the breath, filling your lungs and your diaphragm. Right when you get to the top of that breath, turn the breath around, exhaling through your nose again, and counting 2. You're breathing in through the nose, bringing it all the way to the top of the breath, filling the lungs and diaphragm, turning the breath around, exhaling, and breathing 3. So the important thing is that you've identified that the focal object will be the breath. So you're only going to be focusing on the breath, the breathing in and out, and the counting of the breath. So the specific way that you're telling your mind to do it is that you're focusing only on the breath going in, all the way to the top, filling the lungs and the diaphragm, and then going out. And as it's going out, you're counting. You aren't counting as it's going in. You're counting as it goes out. So the focal object is the breathing in and the exhale with the number. This should be the only thing that you're thinking about. Guarding your mind against any kind of scattering. Guarding your mind against any kind of dullness or lethargy, sleepiness. Trying to have a very, very clear mind that isn't a busy mind, that's focused only on the breathing in and out and the counting. So let's do that exercise for a moment or so, so we can get our mind to a very, very calm place from which we can really, truly listen to this teaching, so that we can listen in a proper way, so we have the wisdom arisen from hearing. So when we do our analytical meditation, we'll have something to actually analyze. And in order to have the wisdom arisen from hearing, we have to be able to hear everything properly and have our mind in a neutral place that isn't busy, that's ready to properly get the information And it's a mind that we want to start from a virtuous place so that we know that we're doing this for one purpose, and that's to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So we're going to get our mind to be very, very focused, and then further instructions will come. So let's breathe in and out, focusing only on the breath, guarding against any kind of sleepiness or any busyness of mind, being clear, being focused on the breath, and correcting it, bringing it back to my mindfulness is my focal object, the breathing in and out and the number. Okay, let's get started. Let's do it. Now in the space in front of you, about 2 feet away, at eye height, about 2 inches tall, about the size of your thumb. In your mind, imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, actual Buddha Shakyamuni. Beautiful and radiant, whatever image of Buddha Shakyamuni you usually use. There is one behind me, right above my head. But we're not using our eyes to focus on this image. We're using our mind. So now our mind is focusing. What's focusing? What's meditating? My mind is meditating. What is my mind meditating on? The focal object. What is the focal object? Breathing in, bringing the breath all the way to the top of the breath, filling the lungs and diaphragm. Exhaling, keeping our count while focusing on the image of Buddha Shakyamuni in the space in front of us. So now add the image of Buddha Shakyamuni to your meditation. Your focal object is now the breathing in and out and the counting and Buddha Shakyamuni. Focusing only on these things, bringing it always back to these objects and thinking of nothing else, telling your mind exactly what to do. Think about how fortunate we are to be able to focus on such a holy being, a being who's abandoned all negativities and only has excellent qualities, a being who has abandoned the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, a being that we will be able to become in terms of realization. Our mental consciousness has the same exact potential as this being. Our mental consciousness can mature into the state of Buddhahood. Our mental consciousness can become that of the Dharmakaya. Now imagine that from this image of Buddha Shakyamuni, the entire merit field explodes into the space in front of you. Imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni has been containing all of these holy beings, contained in one image which you are focusing on, a Buddha Shakyamuni who has all of the excellent qualities of body, speech, and mind and enlightened activities. And now all of those beings with those excellent qualities are now in the space in front of you. Imagine all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, all of the holy beings. Imagine Khensur Geshe Wangdak. Imagine His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Geshe Dorje Damdu, and Geshe Aga, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all these holy, holy beings in the space in front of us. Imagine all the beings of the extensive deeds lineage, passed from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya to Asanga, and such masters as Vasubandhu, Dharmakirti, and Dignaga, and Gunaprabha, and so forth. Imagine all these holy beings in the space in front of you, all the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri, to Nagarjuna, to Aryadeva, and Chandrakirti, and Buddha Palita, and Chandrashita, and Shantideva, and Baba Vega, all these holy, holy masters in the space in front of you. And Master Salimpa, and Lama Atisha, and Drontompa, and all of the Kadampa masters, all the masters of the Nyingma, Kagyu, and Sakya, and Galup tradition. We see Lama Tsongkhapa, and Kirtub-je, and Gyaltsab-je, all of these holy beings in the space in front of us. We see Khensur Geshe Wangdak so happy, smiling and radiant, so happy that we're here, that we're carrying on the teachings, and that we're able to listen to the Dharma that he presented to us so clearly, and he's so happy. Imagine all of the beings in the various classes of Tantra, highest yogic Tantra, performance Tantra, and action Tantra, and all the different 35 Buddhas and protector deities. All of these beings are in the space in front of you and are so happy, is so proud to see that the beings that they care for so much are doing exactly what they need to do in order to have infinite happiness and fearlessness. The only goal that the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas have for us is for us to have this happiness that they have, and for us to be free from suffering like they are. So they're so happy that we're here. Now imagine that all sentient beings have gathered around you, that you've brought them here. Imagine that you have emanated so many different arms, and you've grabbed each and every single one of those sentient beings by the hand and brought them here. All of the hell beings, and the 8 hot hell, and the 8 cold hell, and the surrounding hells, and the hungry ghosts, and the animals. Think of all of these different beings. Don't leave any out. Think about all of them that you've brought to this teaching. All of the animals you can possibly imagine, and you know all the different sufferings that they experience. You see it in front of you, and imagine that you're bringing them all here, and they're able to hear this teaching, and you've led them here because you know that they can be free from suffering, and they can be free from all states of fear by listening to these teachings, and can have the highest state of bliss by listening to these teachings. So you imagine that you've brought all these beings from the 3 lower realms here. Imagine that you brought all humans, all demigods and gods here. When you think of humans, don't think of any with bias. Think that you've brought every single one of them here because everybody is under the influence of their karma, the seeds, the contaminated karma, the seeds and the afflictions that give rise to all of this suffering. And everybody's out of control and having to experience the suffering of change and pervasive compounded suffering. Recognize that everybody just wants to have happiness, wants freedom from suffering, just like you. Their pain hurts just like your pain hurts. Their happiness feels good, just like your happiness feels good. Every single being is equally important, and you've brought every single one of them here in order to hear this teaching and in order to recite these prayers. Now, as we recite these prayers, make sure that you think about the meaning very, very deeply. Imagine not that you're just hearing the words or that you're receiving some kind of blessing from the words. Imagine that these words are transforming into the realizations that are presented within this text. Meditate on the text as you recite it as deeply as you can based on your knowledge of it, and anything that you find lacking, seek further knowledge for. As we engage in this virtue, imagine that all the Gurus and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are so full of happiness and bliss that they begin to erupt with light rays and nectars in the color white, red, and blue. Imagine they start to stream out of this merit field in front of you, and that all sentient beings in yourself have a white Om on your crown, a red Ah at your throat, and a blue Hum at your heart. The white Om symbolizing your body, the red Ah symbolizing your speech, and the blue Hum symbolizing your mind. Now imagine that from the bliss that all the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are experiencing because of seeing all sentient beings here, because of being so proud of you, they love you so much. Khensur Geshe Wangdak cared about us so much. His Holiness the Dalai Lama cares about us so much. Geshe Lobsang Gompo cared about us so much. Remember that love, remember that care, and just imagine from that place of love that they have for all of us, that white light rays and nectars start to shower down on us and all sentient beings, transforming into white Oms, dissolving into our crown and all sentient beings' crowns, into the Om at our crowns, and transforming our impure body into pure bodies. Imagine it. Now imagine that from the bliss that the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are experiencing, red light rays and nectars shower down on us and all sentient beings. Those red light rays and nectars transform into red Ahs and dissolve into our throats and all sentient beings' throats, transform our impure speech into pure speech. Now imagine that blue light rays and nectars shower down on us and all sentient beings. Those light rays and nectars transform into blue Hums, dissolving into our hearts and all sentient beings' hearts and transforming our impure minds into pure minds, Vajra minds. Now let's sit now in this moment of immense love and compassion that we would have if we had our minds transformed into the pure body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. Imagine that we have this immense love and compassion while having the understanding of emptiness. So for just a moment, meditate on emptiness, ultimate bodhicitta. All phenomena are not truly established because they dependently originate. Now, with the thought in mind to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, we'll begin with reciting the Heart Sutra. And as we recite the Heart Sutra, of course, we think about the explicit meaning, the final view of emptiness presented in the Middle Way Consequence School. Without the view of emptiness presented in the Heart Sutra, it doesn't matter what path you're on. If you want to achieve an abiding nirvana or if you want to achieve complete Buddhahood, it's not possible to do any of those things. It's not possible to see the emptiness directly without the understanding of the emptiness of the true establishment of all phenomena. So the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, we find the presentation of this emptiness, the emptiness of objective existence, the emptiness of objectivity we see presented here in a final and a complete way, showing us that no phenomena is truly established because of dependent origination. It doesn't inherently arise from self, other, both, or causelessly. So we look at this explicit meaning of the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. We meditate deeply on it, understanding that all of this arises, all of the experience, all of the external objects, the self, all arises from our mind. There are external objects that we put together and then we nominally designate as this or that, but there is no this or that without the nominal designation that is subjectively brought about. Things have no nature from their own side. They're merely labeled. Some have causes and conditions, parts and wholes, all are nominally designated, brought into existence through the power of designation. And implicitly, the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge teaches the 5 paths. And because it's a Mahayana sutra, it teaches the 5 Mahayana paths, but we recognize that there are 10 Hinayana paths, 5 for the hearer and 5 for the solitary realizer, and then 5 bodhisattva paths. So looking at the perfection vehicle, we see these 5. The path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. For a dull bodhisattva, one who hasn't seen emptiness or won't see it quicker, these pathways would begin with generating bodhicitta, and then one would have a union of calm abiding and special insight, brought about through 2 things, the 2 kinds of meditation: analytical meditation, bringing about the special insight, and the calm abiding being brought about with shamatha, but meditation, a calming meditation. These 2 meditations are brought together, and one is able to see the object of the observation of the analytical meditation, the object of negation, the true establishment of all phenomena in a clearer and clearer way, because one's mind is calm enough. And then one will eventually reach the point where they're just about to see emptiness, and the actual subject and object become almost inseparable in terms of the mind, the wisdom, consciousness, and the object of observation, emptiness. The conceptuality won't even be apparent to the meditator. And then from that point, once that last mundane state of cyclic existence is experienced, then he or she will see emptiness directly. And then on the Mahayana path, as soon as he or she comes out of that realization of emptiness, has been released from it, as we would say, he or she is on the first bodhisattva ground. And then through a series of practices, and then going from the path of accumulation to the path of meditation, the coarse afflictions at the path of seeing are removed, and then the subtle afflictions are removed up to the 8th bodhisattva ground, and then the 8th, 9th, up to the 7 impure grounds. And we see all the various more subtle afflictions, afflictive obstructions being removed. And then in the 8th, 9th, and 10th bodhisattva ground, the obstructions to omniscience being removed. And then the path of no more learning, bodhisoha, where one achieves the state of Buddhahood, crosses from the 10th bodhisattva ground into what would some call the 11th ground, the resultant ground of Buddhahood, where one can create the various bodies of the Buddha, the truth body, the enjoyment body, and the emanation body. So we meditate on the meaning of this as we hear the Heart Sutra. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma, called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind conscious dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Deata onga de gade, bara gade, Bharazam Gadi Bodhi Swadhyada Om Gade Gade Bharagade 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 Bharazam Gadi Bodhi Swadhyada. And as we say this mantra, we can make an aspiration as we say each of the syllables that we're able to achieve the path of accumulation, able to achieve the path of preparation, able to achieve the path of seeing, able to achieve the path of meditation, able to achieve the path of no more learning. And may we do it in this life as swiftly as possible. And we can. We just have to engage in these practices. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Ngala jube nejo damba ne ngushe duchu ngayi dudo jendru babo lama yi bujinzi ne zongandro zo la jatze lo aga samara de shandara samara ya me aga samara de shandara. Aga samara dajanara samara yabe deyata ongate gate paragate parasangate bodhi swaha baba gonju sanji gai dembe doji je lobo doji mebo doji shewa doji jagi baji meten beje danji je dingo yezo ngirin janja je 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 wadan medun be jendan de wadan dumba dunjin bonzon jonjoji tashi de jan denda de lejo. Sorry about that. We'll have to turn the ringer off on one of the phones that was ringing. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas High, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje janan je janan la yanju badu danyi jazu ji dagi ji be zanan ji jala benji sanje bajo. Sanje janan je janan la yanju badu danyi jazu ji dagi ji be zanan ji jala benji sanje bajo. Sanje jadan ji janan la Janju badu dani jazuji dagi jije jibe zonanje jola benje zanje jubarjo. The one who is transformed into the reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher Sugata and protector, to you I make prostrations. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. May this teaching be heard and understood in the language of all sentient beings. Okay, how is everybody doing tonight? I hope you are all well. Tonight we are going to look at Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good we have in our prayer book. And we're going to look at it through a lot of different lenses. And we're going to be, not overly thorough, because I only have the capacity to share what I have the capacity to share. But Rinpoche was so kind to teach us so many times this text and show us how it unites with the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, that I feel confident that we can get a good understanding of this beautiful, beautiful poem that can also be referred to as a prayer for a mountain of blessings. And we see that it's bless me first, bless me. We see this, being repeated over and over again. So I think literally the other way, there's another name for this text, the source of all my good, or the foundation of all good qualities, and it's called the begging for a mountain of blessings. So it's begging for this mountain of blessings. And what would this kind of blessing be? What kind of blessing could we get? And we know that the Buddhas don't wash away the sins with water. They don't take away our suffering with their hands. They can't give us their realizations. They teach the truth of suchness. So we're praying that we can meet with a kind Lama. We can be taught these things. We can be led through these stages so that we can realize these stages. We're praying that we can connect with these holy beings. This is why we make these supplications to the merit field, and we say, we imagine all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, and we imagine these blessings. It's so we connect with these holy beings, so that in all of our lives we don't skip a beat, that if we don't get it right in this lifetime, we know we'll be cared for by holy beings. We know that we will, at our time of death, be able to generate the deity, generate the Lama, and that be protected by the Lama and be guided by the Lama. It says maybe even in the Bardo, we would be able to be protected and cared for by our Lama if we have that real close commitment to our teacher. So we see why it's so important to connect with these holy beings, and why the Lam Rim starts with the foundation of all good qualities is the teacher. And it isn't just, we say it in a very simple way. When you're in an introductory, as an introductory student, we would say, of course, you need to, in order to learn the ABCs, you need to have somebody who knows how to learn the ABCs. But the qualities of the teacher are very, very, very special that we're talking about. It's not just somebody who knows information. It's somebody who has a real, has made this information their life. And we'll talk about what that would look like when we get into this text. But I think that, those of us who've had this beautiful relationship with the teacher. Some of us with Khensur Geshe Wangdak, others of you have had relationships with many, many different teachers. I've been so blessed to have a really close relationship with Khensur Geshe Wangdak and Geshe Lobsang Gompo. Very, very close relationship with both of those beings. And I feel so closely connected to His Holiness, but I've never spent so much personal time with His Holiness. I've spent so much time with Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Khensur Geshe Wangdak, and now I'm spending quite a bit of time with Geshe Dorje Damdu and Geshe Aga as well. But the relationship over those years that I spent with Geshe Lobsang Gompo and observed a true master, observed true humility, true non-biased, but also was able to observe a very strict way of going about practice, and being able to see tough love in the manifestation of a Lama. Very, very different than Rinpoche. Seeing Geshe Lobsang Gompo as you got closer to him became more and more wrathful, less and less kid glovesy, and more Tsutrim, what are you doing? And less, oh, it's so nice to meet you. Whereas Rinpoche just kept, was just this love of just a big hug at all times, and would also get very tough with me at times, but just as an overall ability just to see everybody at their level that Rinpoche had and love them at their level. And you could just see that all he cared about was getting them from whatever level they were at to somewhere a little further down the road to Buddhahood. And Rinpoche just saw everyone in that light. So there was no way to see bias because he was just looking at you for what you needed. So then when he got to me, he looked at me for what I needed. And then he looked at, fill in the blank to give them what they needed. And that's what a true Lama can do because they have taken themselves out of the way. And when you get around to being like this, we try not to be mystical, and we try to identify things in this Galupa tradition of ours with very logic and reasoning, and we do the best we can in this beginning section of relating to a spiritual teacher in establishing this all with really great reasoning. But all of us who have spent time with a Lama know there's something special that gives you this model of an incredibly perfect being as you start to see how they identify with everyone at their own capacity. You start to see them as this ultimate model, and then start to see them as what you will be, exactly what you will be, because they're your teacher and they're teaching you what they did in order to be them. So you're looking at yourself in some ways in the face, separate consciousness, but you're looking at who you will be. So the foundation of all your good is the Lama. The foundation of all your excellent qualities is the Lama, because you're looking at the excellent qualities you'll have. And the Lama can only show you what the Lama's done to get those excellent qualities, and knows exactly what you need to know at your level to get to the point to do all of the things that he or she did in order to realize what they've realized. And when you start to develop this true relationships with a teacher and start to see that their only desire, their only an aim in life is to somehow bring you to happiness, to love you, and somehow to take you from suffering, to have compassion for you, and do that in the most expedient way possible, whether it's teach you only the small scope, or it's to teach you the small and the medium scope, or it's to teach you the great scope but the perfection vehicle, or it's to teach you all of the pathways leading up to that final union of method and wisdom that happens at that final stage of highest yoga tantra, that union. So the Lama knows how to get you to that final place. And we saw a true yogi in our midst, someone who identified as a bodhisattva the last day I spoke with them, someone who had admitted to having an understanding of emptiness. So how many of us, in this whole world, in this universe of beings, will have been able to just for a moment have cast eyes on an Arya Bodhisattva and potentially an emanating Buddha? How many of us will cast our eyes on that and be able to get to be, as we get more and more Guru devotion, get to be so sure it is the Buddha? How many of us will get to know that? How many of us will know that that being isn't only just full of these excellent qualities, but that being in front of you is the Buddha? How many of us will get to know that? I got to know that. And these are realizations we have to become a Buddha. I got to see this. I got to believe this. I got to realize guru devotion. So I know I have a foundation that will make it so I can have excellent qualities. I don't have them yet. I don't day and night know I have this human basis, and I'm just so grateful that that's all I think about. I haven't realized that even yet, the second topic. So don't take this as any kind of bragging. This is just me knowing that I've tasted the potency of that relationship. And I know that that relationship means more than can be explained in my little words. And I can see how somebody who maybe has seen emptiness says it's so hard to explain, because even guru devotion, which is this first topic, and you can say, oh, the guru's the Buddha and this, that, and the other thing, and it sounds great, and the Buddha doesn't need an intermediary. Obviously the Buddha, if he needs to help, can show up. Why would the Buddha need go between? The Buddha could come to us directly. But there's more to it in terms of, once you've studied this stuff enough and you've started to analyze the Lam Rim so carefully, and then you start to hear the Lama, and you see Lama Tsongkhapa's words from the Lama, and then you read the sutras, and you see Lama Tsongkhapa's words and the Guru's words and the Buddha's words, and you start to not be able to identify what's what. You start to not be able to know what's what. And when you hear Shakyamuni's words, you start to be able to hear Shakyamuni Buddha right in the room. And as Geshe Aga said to me one day in such a clear way, that the Buddha is so fresh, like the Buddha's here. When you hear the Buddha's words and you know what those Buddha's words mean. And the only way you're going to know what those Buddha's words mean, if you are a dull person like me, is if you've had a guru explain them through the lens of the authentic Indian commentaries and through the lens of Lord Atisha and Lama Tsongkhapa and so forth. And we had that Lama who could so clearly show us that path. So I feel so blessed to have met with a true being who showed me what real love was, who showed me not only what feeling loved was, and feeling that someone had complete compassion for me was, but I was able to experience what loving someone was in a complete way, without anything there except this pure love, because I knew this being was so holy, and I would have done anything for Rinpoche at the end of his life. And this wasn't a blind faith. This was established through looking at these 5 texts and looking at these things and starting to not be able to distinguish Rinpoche saying, please come here, and the Buddha saying, please come here, and my making a prostration and feeling so grateful that I'd be able to actually come in contact with the Buddha when they say that the Buddha is no longer in our world. When we look at the 5 qualities, that the outer qualities, and the Buddha has come to our world, and they say, well, we don't have the Buddha in our world, so that one really doesn't exist. And I got to feel what that might be like, to have the Buddha in my world, to have the Buddha in our world, to see the teachings remaining in this world because there's an Arya Bodhisattva in front of me. To be able to hear the teachings that those arhats, those root disciples of Buddha Shakyamuni would have heard exactly the way they heard them, not in a way that was leaving anything out, not in a tarnished way, to be able to hear those words in such a pure way and not be able to distinguish between what Nagarjuna is saying, what Khensur Geshe Wangdak is saying. Finding no distinguishing it, finding the 20 emptinesses that Chandrakirti talks about and that Lama Tsongkhapa saw in Sanskrit syllables in the sky. Being able to see all of those teachings that were given and all of those 20 emptinesses and everything that Khensur Geshe Wangdak ever taught as being inseparable from that. So amazing. Not being able to understand everything that he said, but seeing it all as inseparable, seeing it all as so pure. Not being able to know if it's Tsongkhapa in the room or Khensur Geshe Wangdak. Not being able to know if Nagarjuna's in the room or Tsongkhapa. Not being able to know if it's the Buddha talking about Madhyamaka or Nagarjuna or Khensur Rinpoche or Tsongkhapa or Atisha or Dron Tompa or is it Aryadeva, because all of these things are so concordant. All of these teachings are so pure and untarnished. And when you start to look at all of the sutras and you start to investigate this more and more, Wow. And then go back and watch those teachings that Khensur Geshe Wangdak gave us. And the teachings where we understand those baskets of Dharma so clearly, the Vinaya basket, the Sutra basket, and the Abhidharma basket so clearly. And where we be able to understand the shamatha and vipassana so clearly, and be able to understand the Theravada or Pali or Hinayana tradition so clearly, and the 10 paths within that so clearly, and be able to understand those eight paths presented that most don't even in that tradition be able to present, of the approacher and abider to stream enter, approacher and abider to once returner, approacher and abider to never returner, approacher and abider to foe destroyer. To be able to understand those things so clearly and be able to hear the Pali tradition as the Buddha taught the Pali tradition from Khensur Geshe Wangdak, and not know if it's Khensur Geshe Wangdak or Buddha teaching the Pali tradition. So amazing. Be able to hear the Mahayana tradition and not know, when we look at it from the perfection vehicle, if it's that vast lineage, the extensive deeds lineage. Is it Maitreya speaking? Is it Asanga speaking? Vasubandhu Dharmakirti or Khensur Geshe Wangdak? Not knowing when he teaches that vast lineage. And the profound view lineage, not knowing, is that Buddha Shakyamuni Manjushri or is this Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Chandrakirti? Not being able to distinguish. And when you hear the tantric teachings that Rinpoche gave, some of them outwardly and some of them very secretly he gave. Is that Tilo or Naro or Milarepa? Is this Lama Tsongkhapa? Aryadeva, is this Aryadeva teaching highest yoga tantra? Or Khensur Geshe Wangdak? He was so kind to us. He gave us that white tar initiation, that wish-fulfilling wheel initiation over and over and over again. And we'll start to do a practice in the mornings soon. 6:30 a.m. I just have to figure out when. And we'll do at least probably 1,000 mantras together. Probably take 40 minutes for us to do it all together. It'll just be that as a practice together to just keep that connection with Tara. But Khensur Geshe Wangdak gave us this. He blessed us with that practice. That practice where we can see that front generation and generate ourselves simultaneously, and keep the self and other base and understand what that means. Be able to see the front generation in all of its glory, with Tara right in front of us, and Khensur Geshe Wangdak right there, and Buddha Shakyamuni and all the holy beings, and all the Dharma texts behind Tara and Rinpoche, and all the bodhisattvas to the left of Tara and Rinpoche, being able to see that lineage that teaches that beautiful teaching that Trijung Rinpoche expresses in the sadhanas and in the explanation of the sadhanas. We're so blessed to be in that lineage. So we come from very, very good blood. And that's why the source of all our good is the teacher. It's not because we have some blind devotion and it's a rabbit's foot. It's because the teacher, it says the Buddhas teach the truth of suchness. The Buddhas teach the path. That's how they free us. That's how the Guru frees us. The Buddha teaches us the vast lineage, the extensive deeds lineage. The Buddha teaches us the profound view lineage, the tantric lineage, shows us the integrated path, shows us that no teachings are contradictory. These are all instructions to practice. This is what the Buddha meant, and don't abandon any of it. The Guru shows us this. The Guru shows us where it says this and proves it to us. So kind. Okay, so let's start looking at this text. So the source of all my good begins. We're going to look at the text by a little bit. We're not going to use this text in full because we're going to use a bunch of stuff. But Pabongka Rinpoche wrote a wonderful commentary on the source of all my good, foundation of all good qualities. The text is in English. It's called Tsongkhapa, Preparing for Tantra, the Mountain of Blessings. And we actually have permission to use this art angle. I asked a long time ago when we were doing a teaching, and Rinpoche started pulling all of this Pabongka outline out. And I found a lot of it in this teaching that Rinpoche was using in this short text. And I contacted Art Engel, and he said, anything I've ever done, you can use for free. You don't have to ask. Anything that's been published, that I have something to do with, just use it for free. That's what the Dharma's for. So I've just always remembered that in my mind. I know I said it before, but I just always remembered that I've always remembered that, and I've always remembered something else, and I want to just share it because I share things when they come to my mind that over the years I experienced. I remember we were going in the probably late 90s to the Tibet Center. And Geshe Nikki, he was not Ken Rinpoche at that point, he was Geshe Nikki, had just finished, I think, his Geshe studies, and he was in New York, going back and forth. And he was giving teachings on, he was actually using the Ethics for a New Millennium, which is a commentary on Shantideva by Dalai Lama. It's kind of very skillfully like shown as a book for everyone. For, anybody who's interested in being happy and good. But it's a commentary on Shantideva. Very skillful, but just an amazing, amazing text. And Geshe Nikki, Ken Rinpoche, was teaching on that. And I remember him being asked a question of complexity, and, being like, okay, I really want to hear the answer to this. And, it was a complex question that, I don't even remember the question. Isn't that funny? But what moved me so much was that Nikki, he stopped. And he didn't just blurt out an answer. He stopped. In my mind, it went on a long time. It was probably like 5 seconds. But in my mind, there was a very long pause. And he just said, you know what? I don't know. I have no idea what the answer to that question is. But I certainly have more to learn. And that really stuck with me, to see the humility and to see that we're never satisfied. I already knew that point that Tsongkhapa made. We're never satisfied with partial instructions. And that, the great Kadampa masters say we stop studying when our ignorance is gone. Did your time of death, do I still have ignorance? Well, I hope I studied till my time of death, if so, because I shouldn't have wasted any time because the ignorance is still there. And if I have attachment at the time of death, I will take on another rebirth, it's said. So we've got to be careful and make sure that those afflictions aren't propelling us and activating our karmas that will give rise to experiences within cyclic existence that are pretty much bad if we look at them. Even the happinesses are bad. So this commentary by Pabongka Rinpoche, as many of you know, was an incredible, incredible Lama. He lived until, I think, the 40s. He lived into like 60-something. And he was Trijung Rinpoche's root Lama. Trijung, we know the book Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. Some people call it the Brick. The Art Angle and Crew, translated into 3 volumes. Liberation in Our Palms, or in Our Hands, I think is what they call it. And then the Michael Richards has 1 volume, and it's called Liberation in the Palm of Our Hands. Both are incredible, and both are by Pabongka Rinpoche. And it's a teaching that Trijung Rinpoche wrote down, and Pabongka said, listen, I don't trust anyone else to make this into a book but you, so good luck. And it was like over 20 days of teaching on the Lam Rim Chemo that turns into Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands. So that's who Pabongka Rinpoche is. Pabongka Rinpoche is Trijung Rinpoche's teacher. Trijung Rinpoche is the junior tutor of the Dalai Lama. Trijung Rinpoche is Khensur Geshe Wangdak's teacher. Trijung Rinpoche is Dzong Rinpoche's teacher. Dzong Rinpoche is the teacher who gave Khensur Geshe Wangdak the White Tara initiation in his room in Baksa prison. Trijung Rinpoche or Pabongka Rinpoche, one of the two, was just so many of the Lama's teachers in our tradition. And Dapo Lama, Dapo Rinpoche, one of Pabongka Rinpoche's teachers, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, was one of the main realizers of the White Tara wish-fulfilling wheel practice, a yogi who saw Tara, and you can look into that a little more. But Pabongka Rinpoche, I remember being and it's important to say that we also find the lineage and the propagation and kind of the reinvigorating of that Shugden practice done by Pabongka Rinpoche, and then kind of, so you see a lot of people say, and then His Holiness said to stop this practice. So sometimes you will, I'm getting somewhere with this, sometimes you will hear, oh, Pabongka Rinpoche, he did that Dorje Shugden practice. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, so did Trijung Rinpoche, and then many lamas stopped it. Some lamas didn't stop it, and because if they were so old, and by the time His Holiness said for everyone to stop it, they'd been doing it most of their life, and et cetera, et cetera. So His Holiness addressed this. He said, let no one say bad things about Pabongka Rinpoche Vajradhara. He called him Vajradhara, Dorje Chang. He said, Pabongka is the king of the Lam Rim, in my eyes. So I don't know. Of course, Tsongkhapa is the king of the Lam Rim, but he was trying to make a point. I think he said, like a Lam Rim king, maybe not the king, like a Lam Rim king, because we have many kings, right? So he said he's like a Lam Rim king. I was there in Dharamsala. He's like a Lam Rim king in my eyes. So never say bad things because of one small story that's probably like not your problem, kind of like this. So let us be really careful when we start to hear stories and practices. And remember, we're Westerners. We have Palden Lama, who Tara's, and if we want to protect her, we have Palden Lama. Rinpoche relied on Palden Lama as his protector. Nagarjuna had Mahakala. We don't have to search out all these different protectors and the one over here and that one over there. We don't have to get involved in controversies. We have Palden Lama. Each of the monasteries have their protectors, but we aren't in those monasteries. Right? We aren't in the monasteries. But we know that our teacher told us to practice Palden Lama. That's what we know. We know there's a lot of protectors and all this different stuff going on. We know our teacher didn't talk about them. Our teacher talked about Palden Lama. Palden Lama is Tara. So we needn't look further or talk further. And what other people do and their protectors and what they think about. My mind is I only have to worry about my mind. I have to worry about my mind and what my teacher told my mind to do. My teacher said Palden Lama practice. I was Rinpoche's translator. I never heard him say to do any of these other things but Palden Lama practice. You could say protector at the end. Rinpoche gave this Drapo Sumdri, the three wrathful protectors, the Haryagriva, Garuda, and Vajrapani. But really, Rinpoche always said rely on Tara, rely on Palden Lama. I just wanted to not to get off on a tangent. But I just want to make sure that this is on video, that I was there. And he said, let no one speak negatively about Pabongka Dorje Chang. And I feel the same way, because I feel liberation. If I hadn't read Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, I have no idea if when I met Rinpoche, would have cared as much. Because I had already read it a little. I had no idea what it really meant, but I had already read it enough to know I needed to do something about the problem that I definitely have. And that this person had something to do with the solution. So I really, really knew that. And it was to the thanks I really say to Pabongka Rinpoche and some other lamas who really, really kind of pointed me in that direction. Labsang Samten, I think, and another, I remember his name. He's like a Brazilian, Anthony? Anyway, he was a Western monk who I think was recognized by Lati Rinpoche maybe as a tulku, maybe wrong. But he told Barbara, and Lobsang would refer to it, if you ever have any questions, refer to the brick. And then I heard this, so I had to get this book. If you have any questions, well, I have a lot of questions. At this point, I'm brand new to Buddhism. I hadn't met a lama. Like I hadn't really, started studying in a real thorough fashion with someone. So I really, not to digress, but I really, really appreciate Pabongka Rinpoche Dorje Chang, Vajradhara, and Trijung Rinpoche called him Dorje Chang as well. And so kind, Trijung Rinpoche, such an incredibly holy Lama that gave so many teachings and initiations to so many lamas that are part of our lineage, that we're fortunate to be in that good blood, that pure lineage of teachings. And I speak of it in not in a way to say there isn't other pure lineages of teachings. That's just me saying that I know this is pure. I'm not uncertain about that. So let's begin with the text. So it says, Yunten gunji shedr jinchin je, sushin demba lanji tsawa ru, lepa tone pepa tomai, gupa chembu demba jinji lo. Okay. So it says, the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him or her in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him or her with all my strength and reverence. So I'm putting him or her in there because I don't see gender in this. And my main practice is a female deity. Rinpoche's, always. So I think you guys get it. So, and I don't even in the Tibetan see how you would justify gender specificity. So if there's a scholar out there who wants to knock me on the head right now, that's fine. But the way I look at this is that without that specificity, and I don't see any reason why there would be any, because we all have Buddha nature. We have so many examples of female and male Buddhas, female practitioners who are extremely realized right now. I speak with one of them on a regular basis, Geshe Tenzin Ladrin, extremely realized, advanced practitioner that I have in my life, that I go to when and would go to if I needed guidance on, Dharma guidance. I don't see why there would be any mean to use anything. Maybe just say this kind person. But anyway, I'm going to do the best I can. So you all know my views. My main practice is Tara, and I have both teachers who are male and female at this point in my life. So my kind guru is a person, not a gender specific person. So when we look at this text, Pabongka Rinpoche says we can divide it into 4 categories. So we're going to use it through this lens, but they're kind of obvious when we look at them, but maybe they're not. So let's look at it. So the first is obviously the first category. The very root of the path is what? How to properly take on a teacher and serve him or her properly. It's funny. In this translation by Art Engel, you see him or her. In the commentary up here. I think Geshe Michael Roach actually helped with this too. That's another name. I'm sorry if I said a name that makes everybody freak out. But we need to look for the source of good in folks and try to get these biases out. And if someone doesn't have something someone has something we don't want, we don't want that. And we, just be respectful and walk away quietly. But look at the good things that people have done and try to see that. Because I really think that, here's another thing, I don't care. I really think that a very important thing that we all have to do when we come in contact with spiritual teachers, maybe as we throw ourselves into these relationships, we project unfair qualities onto those teachers. What they're projecting out, it's subjective. So we have to be so careful and investigate the teacher. And really, before we say, oh, they're this person that can't make any mistakes, they're this person that's transcended things, we have to really have developed a relationship with them that's extremely solid. See them first as kind of, as Dzong Rinpoche says, and in Alexander Berzin's Relating to a Spiritual Teacher's text says, as a professor, seeing that, watching them, checking their life. Then maybe we could see them as a Sangha, a Sangha member we could put in the merit field as Sangha. After we've watched their life and checked these things we're going to talk about. And then we see them as like a special deity being. But if we jump to this, prematurely, they're this special deity being, we're going to have the tendency, when they aren't acting the way that we think they should be acting like a special deity being, or if they totally screw up royally from what we can see. Now, I'm not at a level where I'm willing to just see it all, everything pure. But we have to realize it's from our side what we're seeing. So we're projecting a whole lot of stuff onto it. So we have to be careful, because if we aren't really analyzing this teacher and we're projecting all this stuff onto them, we're projecting onto them in a diluted way, oh, now they're this perfect Buddha being, right? We're projecting this onto them, but we're also projecting all of these things, all of our own delusions and our own defilements and our own small-minded view onto them at the same time. So if a tiger runs really fast and jumps over things with ease and skill, no problem. But if a pig starts to emulate that, he or she may break their leg. So when you first meet a teacher, don't have these unrealistic expectations. Meet a teacher, start to learn what they have to offer. See if they really know what they know. If they say they've had realizations, see if the way they say those realizations occur meet with what Scripture says. A student has to be open-minded, intelligent. Number 2, open-minded, listen to what the teacher says, and then use your brain, folks. Be intelligent and put in effort. Don't jump into this guru devotion relationship. Because what'll happen is, if you start to, before you're ready to see things in a different way, to abandon ordinary appearances, everything's going to appear ordinary. You're nowhere near ready, no matter what, if the guru's pure or impure, to get into a relationship like that, where you're going to abandon ordinary appearances. So whether they're pure or they're impure, you're not even ready to make an assessment like that. So don't. Leave it for a second. And the reason I'm saying this is, you can have a teacher that teaches you wonderful things, that really helps you in your practice, moves you along in some way in your practice. Now, if you have put unrealistic expectations on that teacher, and then they do something that you think is absolutely wrong and so bad, if you've been looking through that through the lens of this dual abandoning ordinary appearances, and it has to be ordinary appearances, and then you decide that this person's horrible, and then for some people I talk to 20 years later, there's so much resentment still, it's such an obstacle to practice. And it was such an obstacle to my practice for many, many years. And I can't imagine the kind of karma I created because I misidentified the relationship with the teacher. I misidentified what was going on. I misidentified my samsara and tried to be a tiger running. And then started thinking that I was in some way more realized than this person who knew so much and had taught me so much, and that somehow they were of no use and they were just terrible people. And it's because I hadn't investigated it enough. I was too young. I was too naive. I just didn't know. And I didn't know the source of all my good was my Lama. I didn't understand what that really meant. I didn't understand that in all my lives, I don't want to be separated from Lamas. In previous lives, I had this relationship with Khensur Geshe Wangdak. I had some relationship there that made this relationship so strong. Maybe it was just I saw him and said, oh, what a holy being in a previous life. When, who knows, right? Karma's weird. But Geshe Agho is saying, make no mistake about it, Jeff. This is such strong karma. A being goes from a village in Tibet to the main city in Lhasa, to walk into India, to a refugee camp in India, to a place in South India, to a 44-hour train ride away, plus, another 10 or 15-hour car ride away, to northern India, and then he goes back to Tibet, and then he comes to Ithaca, New York, and then he comes to Middletown, Connecticut, and he went to Malaysia, I think, somewhere in there too. Some like, I think he did, I think so. But really, really, for us to have met with Khensur Geshe Wangdak, what incredible karma, and don't make any mistake about that. Know you have incredible karma if you met with a holy being. If you've even heard, from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, if you've even heard these names, just know you have an amazing karma, and you have this seed that is just ready to explode into renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness. And believe that in your heart. Believe that this seed that Rinpoche planted in you is so powerful, because your relationship with him is so powerful, that this seed's so powerful that you'll be able to, if you put in enough effort, become Buddha in this lifetime, or in the intermediate state through an illusory body, or you'll peel out of this in Kala Chakra, like a snake shedding its skin. Really, really, we can realize this in this lifetime. There's no question about it that we can realize these things that are presented. Why? Because we saw it realized by a being with mental consciousness, a mental consciousness that can mature, that's not truly established. We saw a being with the excellent qualities that we will have. We know it's possible because that being has the same nature of mental consciousness that we have. The only thing that being did that we have not done is practice those pathways. The only thing that being did was generate renunciation. We have not. Day and night they wanted to get out of cyclic existence. And then generated bodhicitta. We have not. Day and night they wanted to get all sentient beings out of cyclic existence. They saw emptiness. We have not. We have grasping. We don't have the view. We're attached to our self-interest. Therefore we don't have bodhicitta. We're attached to cyclic existence, therefore we don't have renunciation. We're attached to this life. We're not even spiritual practitioners, and we wonder why we can't be as great as Khensur Geshe Wangdak. We wonder why we put him on this pedestal like a god, like a rabbit's foot that we can just rub. Like if we could just have another day with him, maybe we could just become a Buddha. When we just need another day to practice, and that's what we need to become a Buddha. Rinpoche received teachings, received blessings from the gurus. What were those blessings, teachings? Now we can say there's other blessings that can take place, and I agree wholeheartedly. But we needn't talk about those things. That's too mystical. Let's talk about the actual realities. By making supplications, we can meet with these teachings who will teach us suchness. Really so powerful. So the source of all my good, the foundation of all excellence is my kind teacher, my Lord, my protector, who will protect me in all my lives, who will make sure. How will they protect me? By teaching me Dharma, mind protection. Mantra, doing mantras is mind protection. Will teach me the mantra vehicle, but teach me how to protect my mind. Protect my mind from what? The afflictive obstructions. And remove the obstructions to omniscience. Protect my mind from those things. And that's what the Lama will do in all my lives. May I never live apart from these perfect Lamas. May I never live apart from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May I never live apart from Khensur Geshe Wangdak. May I never live apart from Geshe Lobsang Gompo. May I never see them as inseparable. And may I never see them as inseparable from the deity. Really. We see the foundation starts with maybe teaching you how to get out of the suffering of the lower realms. The teacher teaches you that. You have this good basis. You're going to die though, and you can go to the lower realms. The teacher teaches you that. But then the teacher will also teach you how to dump all of that wind into the central channel and end all of it, end all the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience in a lifetime. How to find that very, very fourth drop. How to find that clear light mind. The Lama will show you how to do that, just like the Lama shows you how to get out of the lower realms. And that's why the Lama is the foundation of all good qualities. What are good qualities? Renouncing the lower realms, renouncing cyclic existence, wanting to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, seeing emptiness, going through the stages of the various tantric, action, performance, yogic tantra, and highest yoga tantra, completing the two stages of the completion, the generation stage and completion stage. All good qualities. What are the good qualities? All of those pathways. The 15 pathways we find. The hearer, solitary, realizer, 5, and the bodhisattva or Mahayana pathways, 5. Those 15 pathways. And then the tantric pathways that you can find also within, you can enumerate another way as well. So that's what it means. The foundation of all good qualities. What are good qualities? Anything that's not afflicted. Any quality of the mind. Virtuous qualities of the mind, non-afflicted virtuous qualities of the mind. Really, really amazing, uncontaminated virtues. Those virtues that we engage in with purity. So all of those excellent qualities that of those kind of fruitional qualities and those resultant, all of them come from the teacher. So we see, how we rely, when we look at the text, the Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. I'm going to wrap it up here in a second. We see, I think there's 6 categories, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You're all scholars at this point on the Lama Rinpoche, but I think there's six categories. F's the 6th. Yeah, that's 6. 6 categories in the great treatise, and we see how to rely on the teacher that's the root of the path. And we see the definition of the teacher, definition of the student, how the student relies on the teacher, and we see how to rely on thought and how to rely on practice. And then we see the benefits of relying on the teacher, the faults of not relying on the teacher, and a summary of the 5 previous parts. We're not going to go over all of those, but I just wanted to make sure that we see that entire outline of the Lam Rim Chemo and all of the points in there go into this one stanza. So this one stanza contains all of the meaning in that section of the Lam Rim Chemo, all of the meaning that we find also in Lama Tsongkhapa's abbreviated stages of the path, the Lam Rim Dudun. We also find that as well. So we can look at that another time. But in Pabongka's text, it says that we first divide this the step of taking the Lama on into 2 sections, developing clear faith. So it says, the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him or her in the proper way is the very root of the path. So here it's developing clear faith in him or her, Pabongka says in this stanza. So the first thing we're doing is developing this faith, developing faith through the various analysis that we find in the Lam Rim Chemo, and we find in an extensive way in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. If you really want to learn about relying on the teacher, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, we also find it in the 50 verses of Guru Devotion by Ashvaghosha Miti Dayan, and such beautiful text. And we find all of the advices, how to really please the teacher is by practicing exactly what they've taught, doing exactly what they say. And if you can't do what they say, or you can't continue to follow doing what they say to do because you find it's wrong, it's not meeting with what the Dharma says. The source of the 50 verses on Guru Devotion says that you say politely, I'm sorry, I can't do this, it doesn't accord with the Dharma. And then you just quietly back out of the room, and then you don't connect with that Lama anymore. And you look at, I feel so blessed to have received what I've received from that Lama. And then you move on. You don't have to harbor any of that ill feeling. Either it's your messed up projections, or, from their side, they're not evolved, and you expected too much from them. You expected way too much from them. And that's your fault for expecting too much from somebody that's not evolved. So we develop this faith in the Lama, but it's through analysis, through looking at what good qualities and what a Lama who has good qualities are, and having intelligence, and then studying the Dharma really well and seeing if what they're saying concords with the Dharma. That's when you take this relationship on. It's not like, I don't know anything, Do with me what you will. That would be stupid. That wouldn't be intelligent. That wouldn't be the second quality Arya Davis says you have to have. And Tsongkhapa puts in the second, defining the quality the student has to have. Tsongkhapa feels it's that important to put that in the, one among the 6 divisions of this topic. So very important. So then we develop, so it says you develop faith and then build up reverence by considering the great kindness. It says that that the teacher gives, the great kindness the teacher pays to us. So I think that makes sense, right? So the source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first that taking myself to him or her in the proper way is the very root of the path. And then grant me, now bless me to serve and follow him or her with all my strength and reverence. The only arguable thing here is I don't know if J, Lord, has any kind of gender specificity. I don't think so, but I've just, try to keep it translation clean here and my points and commentary clean here, but, I don't think so. But so we're developing through critical analysis faith, and we're looking at what kind of qualities a Lama would have that we would have faith in. So in order to understand those qualities, we have to know what they are. We have to study what they are to know what they are. In order to understand what those qualities mean, we have to analyze them and look at text. Well, what does this mean? Even the ornament for the Mahayana Sutra quote, the 10 qualities of the teacher from Maitreya. We need a commentary to really understand what Maitreya is getting at exactly when he's talking about these qualities of the teacher, and we'll end with that with that reading of the qualities of the teacher that it says here that have to be there, and I'll show you how if you just hear something, you have to make sure that you know what it means and analyze it. So you can have the wisdom arisen from hearing, and you can hear these words. But if you don't know the implicit meaning of the words and you don't analyze them, then you won't even really know what the qualities of the teacher are that you need to look for. So here it says, rely on a Mahayana teacher who is disciplined, serene, thoroughly pacified, has good qualities surpassing those of the students, is energetic, has a wealth of scriptural knowledge, possesses loving concern, has thorough knowledge of reality and skill in instructing disciples, and has abandoned dispiritedness. So in a quick nutshell, it's basically serene, disciplined, serene, and thoroughly pacified. If you didn't know what that means, you wouldn't know that's referring to the 3 higher trainings: ethics, concentration, and wisdom. So that they should have these qualities of the training in ethics, the training in concentration, the training in wisdom. Good qualities surpassing those of the students. That's easy to understand. Energetic, makes effort. Makes a great amount of effort. Shouldn't be someone who just isn't, doing that. It should be someone who makes a great amount of effort themselves in the practices. Somebody who isn't lazy, makes great efforts at teachings, great efforts in doing practices, and so forth. And then there's many more points to that commentary. Has a wealth of scriptural knowledge, knows their stuff, possesses loving concern, loves the students, there's no bias, isn't doing it to get your money, doesn't have a reason or motivation other than to teach you the truth of suchness so you can be free. That should be the reason that the teacher's there, because they love you. They want you to have happiness. Not love in a weird way that we would think as Westerners. They love you. What does love mean? They see you as lovable, and they want you. What does that mean? They want you to have happiness in the causes of happiness. So that's why they're teaching you, because they want you to have happiness in the causes of happiness. Thorough knowledge of reality. Lama Tsongkhapa says, best that they've seen emptiness, but at least that they know what that emptiness means. What's the object of negation? Do they know that? And skill in instructing disciples. They have to know how to instruct. If they can't hold the room, then, or they don't know how to talk to, someone who's at this level, but somebody who's at that level, then it's not going to necessarily work out. They have to be skilled in instructing, and then abandon dispiritedness. Not upset with having to say something over and over and over and over and over again. It's like it's fresh. It's like the first time they said it. When you come up to them and say, oh, I don't remember what it was, instead of being like, God, I can't believe you don't remember this, they think, how wonderful it is that I can teach you something you don't know. It's like fresh for them every time. Oh, how wonderful. Wonderful you don't know. I can teach you something. So I can teach you the truth. I can teach you the truth of suchness, so you're going to move closer to Buddhahood. And then in closing, during these times, of course, we're in degenerate times. So Pabongka says here's at a bare minimum what we can have. And Lama Tsongkhapa has a bare minimum in there we'll look at next week. But Pabongka says bare minimum. Lama must surely fit the following description. This is in his commentary on this source. Must occupy him or herself more with the Dharma than with the things of this world. 1. He or she must as well occupy him or herself more with the concerns of the future life. So, right? So we see they must be a spiritual practitioner. Basically, if we look at the, parting from the 4 attachments taught by Orange Manjushri to the great Sakya Lama, we see that. So they have to be a spiritual practitioner, basically. And more concerns of the future life than with those of the present one. He or she must occupy himself more with helping others than with helping him or herself. He or she is never careless in what he or she does or says or thinks. And finally, he or she never leads his disciples on a wrong path, which is mistaken. So the teacher isn't going to teach you something wrong or mistaken. So, if you are attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you don't have renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you don't have bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. I will make a mandala offering, Thanksgiving mandala offering for the teaching, the lineage, all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni. And think about all these holy beings that were making this mandala offering of the pure universe too. Think about Rinpoche. Think about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Think about this incredible lineage, really. Think about it. Now we're talking about Trijung Rinpoche and Pabongka Rinpoche. And, think about Geshe Gompo, who had all these same teachers as Rinpoche, all the same teachers. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama had the same teachers as Rinpoche in a lot of ways. And Gen Nima, and Shakro Gen Nima, and Khensur Pema Jetsun, and Gen Uzir, and all Gen Lachap, and all these holy beings that are all in this lineage that we are now holders of, that we have the transmissions of. So just really say thank you. Thank you to the instructor all the way back to Buddha Shakyamuni. Thank you, Pabongka. Thank you, Kirtrip J. Thank you, Joseph J. Thank you, Atisha, right? Thank you, Dron Tompa. And always remember, Dron Tompa was a lay person. Atisha said, I really only entrust this Lam Rim lineage to you, Dron Tompa. Of all the beings, I really trust it to you. And Dron Tompa was a lay person, so make no excuses in your life. Always use this life as a means to becoming a Buddha. Don't waste this life trying to get the trivial things of this life. Don't waste this life trying to only get a better next life. Don't waste this life only trying to get out of cyclic existence. Use this life to achieve Buddhahood, that extremely, extremely incredible state of fearlessness and bliss. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your bodies in massive clouds and knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I dedicate all whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Ozandrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Tibetan. Gangri Rawe Korwe Shinjam Dir Pendan Dewa Malu Jongwe Ne Jenre Ziwan Denzin Yatsoi Shapezi de Badu Denjoji. In all our lives, may we never be separated from Khensur Geshe Wangdak in whatever form he or she shows us, whether it's an emanation body in normal worlds or the enjoyment body when we become Arya Bodhisattvas. May we always collect the causes and conditions and merit necessary to meet with this holy being. And when we become Buddhas, may we help Khensur Geshe Wangdak lead every single sentient being without exception to the state of Buddhahood. May we become Buddhas for the sake of all sentient beings. May I become Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you. Look in the mirror of the Dharma. See these things as instructions to practice. That's what the Buddha intended for us. That's what Atisha shows us. And when you see them as instructions for practice, try to, every moment of the day, reflect on them so that you can integrate this into your life and so that you can see how you can walk down the street and you can inwardly be a great yogi and outwardly be displaying very normal everyday behaviors in a kind way. Thank you.